I just got three things to say. God bless our troops, God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Welcome to the Stire Sound podcast with your hosts, Trey, Stire, and Jack, Noel.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2026 and welcome back to the Stire Sound. Thank you for joining us. It is coming up soon. The racing season is finally about to get underway, and today you are tuned in to the official 450 preview episode from the Stire Sound. Welcome back to the show once again. I am your host, Trey Stire, as always. Joining me once again, the man, the myth, the legend, my co-host from the Dirt Legal, Dirt Bike Depot, WMR, KTM team, Jack Noel is here, and we are going to break down the 450 class for the Monster Energy AMA Supercross season coming right up. And of course, before we really hop into these predictions, I will say a big wrench was already thrown into the championship just a few days before Christmas. News broke that Jett Lawrence was out of the running for the championship. He suffered a ankle injury, foot injury. It's right there pretty much in the connection where your ankle goes down into your foot. But Jett Lawrence will be out for around 3 months or so, it is believed. Definitely knocking him out of the first couple months of Supercross at least, possibly longer. I believe Birmingham at the end of March would be the first possible return date for Jett. But already a big piece of news, and in my opinion, the title favorite for the series already out of the championship before the gate even drops at Anaheim 1, before time practice and qualifying even starts at Anaheim 1. So now things are changed. Of course, there were a lot of other contenders that we could have covered and mentioned as well, but I think Jett would have been pretty much everyone's favorite. Now things change, and I'm going to send it over to you, Jack, and put you on the spot a little bit. I anticipate who you're going to pick for this. But now that Jett Lawrence is out, before we really dive into all of these racers, in your opinion, on paper, who would be the favorite to win the championship as of now, with Jett Lawrence on the sidelines?
You know, it might not be as playing out as you think. My favorite really, I feel like, is Hunter, a guy like Hunter who's kind of under the radar a little bit in like sense of like title going at it, but I think he's improving every time he rides a Supercross track. I think he's still getting better, and for me, I think he's the most complete guy right now with like the least moving things around him. I mean, it's hard to count out Cooper Webb, but you know, if Hunter Lawrence I think Hunter got hurt last year too, so you know, knowing Hunter is like that number one guy before A1 even, you know, the gate drops, I feel like it's easier for him to come in and be successful. So that's in my opinion, I think it's Hunter.
Very interesting take right off the bat. I'm surprised by that a little bit personally, but you bring up a great point. I don't think there is a clear-cut favorite now. Everybody's always going to have Jett up there unless he proves otherwise. Every single season he's completed when he's been healthy on that 450 machine, he's won the championship. I think it's going to be a long time before anybody says, oh, Jett's not the favorite when he's healthy, but there are so many moving elements. And when you look at the contenders for this year, I am going to start out, in my opinion, the favorite for the title, and I know he just switched bikes, but I would have Chase Sexton as the championship favorite, a guy who missed out only 2 points off of last year's championship. He won the 2023 title after dueling with Tomac. 2024 outdoor champion. When Chase is on and when Chase is comfortable, Chase is, I think, other than Jett Lawrence, the fastest guy in the world. And I think now he doesn't have to worry about Jett any. Of course, we saw the 2024 motocross season when Chase won the title. Jett ran the first half of the season or so, won a bunch of races, looked like he was going to be fine, and then of course he ends up getting hurt. But Chase Sexton, as soon as Jett dropped out, it's like Chase Sexton found another level and started really putting it on everybody. Hunter Lawrence was the only guy even in his stratosphere at that point. Now with Jett gone again, I think that makes Chase Sexton the favorite. I know he just switched to Kawasaki, but like I mentioned, it seems like throughout his career so far, especially in the 450 ranks, if Chase Sexton is healthy and confident and feeling great mentally, he's going to be very tough to beat. I would have Chase personally as my favorite to win the championship. Granted, you have Webb, Tomac, even Ken Roczen, Hunter Lawrence. I mean, there are so many guys. But me personally, I just feel with his track record and his flat-out speed and ability, Chase Sexton is probably my guy at the favorite position of the Supercross series. Obviously, hard to tell. Nothing's happened yet, and so many variables now. Almost a bit like 2008 when James Stewart went out at round 2 or 3, I think it was, with a knee injury. Now this year, it's wide open again. Everybody thinks Jett's going to run away with it. Nope, that's not going to happen. Chase, year 1 on Kawasaki. It's going to be very interesting to watch. Of course, we talked a few episodes ago. We were on episode number 22, by the way. I forgot to mention that in my intro because I couldn't remember if it was 21 or 22 for sure. But we're here, episode 22. But I mentioned a couple episodes ago that Chase Sexton is really the guy that Kawasaki is putting all of their hopes into. They had Carmichael, won championships. They had Stewart, Villapoto, a couple years past. Then they had Tomac. Now, since Eli left, it's been a dry spell. Jason Anderson got close, wasn't able to get it done. AC got hurt, derailed his 450 career. Jorge Prado was expected to come over, be this next big guy, potentially have that two-headed monster, I guess you could say, for Kawasaki with Chase and Jorge. That didn't work. Jorge's gone before Chase even signed with the team. Kawasaki really out there looking for that number 1 guy, and I think they found it with Chase Sexton. I think the combo is going to hit the ground running, and personally, Chase Sexton, in my opinion, would be the on-paper favorite for the championship. Despite the new bike, despite everything else, I think he's going to have a really strong season.
I agree. I mean, I said Hunter because I think it's for him like open door, and I think for everybody really, it's hard to argue like against anybody. Like, I mean, you could even say a guy like Tomac could come out and win, which, in my opinion, is also very possible. I think this is going to be a very interesting season. I mean, even guys like, Cooper Webb clearly could come out and be really, really competitive right off the bat as long as he can, stay on that podium. And I think if he's in the fight for the first 4 or 5 rounds and doesn't have any super bad races, like I think he's going to be a talk to potentially win this title as well, just because of how good he is like in the middle of the season, and then once he's kind of got a grasp on things, he's able to come through and mentally kind of beat everybody in a sense. But yeah, I just think going into it like Hunter, like that's why I said that. It's just like he's the most level-headed guy right now in my head, with the least doesn't have a ton of pressure, but I feel like he kind of lives in Jett's shadow, and with Jett gone, it could easily be Hunter Lawrence comes through, steps up, figures it out. This is his 3rd year in the 450 class in Supercross, so yeah, I think it'll be good. And he was kind of plagued with injuries all year last year. He didn't really have a great, wasn't never really 100%. It never seemed like, but no, I really do. I do think this title's wide open, and I agree though. I think Chase could easily win this as well. Like, as long as those growing pains aren't major, and I think there are gonna be some mistakes, but I think if he can go out there and win, let's say you win 7 to 9 races, I think it's hard to argue with your point of Chase being the champion. So it's going to be tough, but if Hunter can go out there, and I think Hunter's one of the more consistent riders in the field, if Hunter can be on the podium the first, 3 rounds, 4 rounds, and then he's able to click off a win or two, let's say before Daytona, I think he puts him in a spot where it's like, okay, it's on now, like he's legit. As soon as he gets that first win, like if it's in the first, let's say 5 or 6 rounds, I think he has the potential to win it as well. So That's just where my point comes in, because I think he can do that. I don't think that's out of the question of what he's capable of doing. So that's why I say Hunter, just because he's got the least moving pieces around him. I mean, Cooper Webb's staying on the same team, so he's a good talk, and he's a defending champ. So that's tough. But Cooper Webb likes to have that slow, that second year of after he wins the title, he kind of takes a year off. It almost seems like I'm kind of predicting him to do the same thing, to be fair. But with Jett Lawrence out, like the door is wide open for literally anybody. Like it could quite literally be Malcolm Stewart we'd be talking about as a champion, which would be crazy, but it genuinely could happen at this point, because before it's who has the ability to beat Jett, and for Jett, the only reason he's losing is because he's beating himself, which sucks to say. So, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up to just how wide open this whole series is going to be.
You bring up a lot of great points, and it's so hard to pick between so many guys. Cooper Webb obviously is going to be in the conversation. One of my sayings that I like to use from time to time is death, taxes, odd year Cooper Webb. Of course, 2019, 2021, 2025, all three of his championship seasons in 450 Supercross were on odd years. And realistically, there's a chance 2023 could have been a fourth title, but of course he goes down in Nashville, so we don't fully get to see what Cooper Webb was capable of that year. But it seems like something about him in odd years, for whatever reason, it just clicks. It just works. And of course, he was the runner-up in 2024. He had a really good year. I think he was the runner-up in 2020. So it's not like he's any slouch. I mean, yes, 2022 was an outlier, the whole quote-unquote best offseason ever, and then proceeds to not win a race thing. But that is in the past. Cooper Webb, you can never count the guy out. He's so tenacious, such a grizzled veteran, and he's so used to being that underdog. He's never been, at any point in his career really, in the 450 class, the quote-unquote fastest guy, yet he's a three-time champion, which I'm not sure you could say that about many other people in the sport's history. But Cooper, he always uses his mind games, he always uses his mental toughness, his quartering ability. He always just hangs around, and he'll take a verbal shot here and there, and then he'll just keep chipping away, and we're going to see that number one this year. I'm not going to pick Cooper Webb as a back-to-back champion, but I definitely think he's going to be in the fight. I think he's going to be up there, up front, but as you mentioned, it seems like every year he starts a little bit slow. Anaheim 1, it seems like he's a 5 to 7 guy every year. In the first couple races, it's really Glendale or so when we start to get ready to move east that he turns it on. You look at that stretch this year where we have Glendale and then Arlington's in there a couple weeks later. It seems like those are the races where he's really going to be able to hop in this year and be like, okay, this is Cooper Webb territory. This is where he's going to start to pick it up. And then you look on later in the season, I mean, all of those rutted up East Coast tracks you think about, like Indianapolis is a track that I think Cooper Webb could really perform well at. There are so many different places. St. Louis, it seems like, could be a Cooper Webb style track. Birmingham, he's had success there in the past. You never know, but Cooper's going to hang in there for sure, and I think he's going to give it a fight. But he's not my pick to win the championship, although I'm sure this will be fuel to the fire. Granted, we're not on the Pulp MX scale or LVK scale, but hey, you never know. Maybe Cooper Webb listens to our show and says, you know what? These guys are saying I'm not going to win the championship. I'm going to prove them wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the defending champ, Cooper Webb, I mean, had a heck of a year last year. Didn't start off the season great, like I had said earlier, and you followed up with. But that middle of the season where I think he's going to get he's going to need to be successful to have a chance to win this title. You have rounds like Glendale, Seattle, Arlington, Houston. I think those couple rounds right off the bat, like Daytona, those couple rounds that are kind of like the meteor season, it's a bunch of West early. Like, it's not like it has been in years past where we kind of go back and forth a little bit. There's some West Coast rounds in there. It's West, East, and then back West. There's no breaks for the East Coast really. it's kind of interesting, and obviously, like he's been successful at rounds like Arlington, Seattle, Glendale, and that's where he's going to have to be successful. I think this year. I think that's where he's going to have to succeed. I think those are weaker rounds for guys like Chase and Hunter. I think that rounds like we get further like on the West Coast, like Anaheim 1, San Diego, I think guys like Tomac and Hunter and Chase will be a little bit better. But we'll see. I think Chase is also good, and I think the rudder conditions as well. Same with Hunter Lawrence. So I think those middle rounds that are kind of like a weird dirt and kind of like they're hard, they're blue groove, but they're also like got some ruts in them, and they're slick, and they're super ruddy. I think he's gonna have to be good there, and I think rounds like those 4 rounds in my head, if Cooper Webb's can win two out of 4, 3 out of 4, and he has the red plate leaving Daytona, I think that's gonna be like the dictator for me. Like everybody says before, the red plate leaving Daytona, that happens to be your guy going into the rest of the season, and I think it could be the same too. I think if Hunter has the red plate leaving Daytona, I think he's in the driver's seat to win this title. I mean, same with like a guy like Tomac. I mean, we cannot count him out, especially knowing just like I feel like the kind of weight off of everybody's shoulders. You hate to say it, that Jett not being on the line brings. I mean, it's crazy how good Jett is, and it's such a bummer that we're not able to see him race because I feel like in the sense of it, like I hope it really doesn't tarnish what legacy he could potentially be having, because in my head, like he could have been going for a McGrath's record. Like if he was able to stay healthy, like I could see him winning, racing for 7 or 8 seasons in the 450 class and winning, 10 to 12 rounds a year if he's healthy. And unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and it sucks because I feel like he's got tons of race wins in him on top of championships, which is something you don't see very often. Coming up from a guy so young. So I don't know. I'm excited to see how everybody kind of takes on this season. I think a guy like Jay Coop is now in the talk for potentially getting a win this year. Ken Roxon, I think the resurgence of him could be, even better. I think he's such a mental battle going into these races, and I think he had a really successful World Supercross, and it was a simple World Supercross for him, in my opinion, and it didn't take a lot of effort, and there were some really good guys around the gate with him, and I think for him that's kind of like a confidence booster. Like, look, I was able to go beat these guys when we were racing Worlds 2 months ago, and now it's Supercross time, and yeah, there's a couple more guys on the gate, but it's going to be a little bit easier because there's no Jett, I'm excited to see how everybody competes. I mean, like we saw Cooper Webb in Australia this year, in Paris. I mean, last year in Paris he had a good year, but this year it was kind of slow. Malcolm Stewart looked like the clear guy, minus Jett and Hunter's little mishaps. But I mean, Malcolm Stewart, like I said, like with no Jett, Malcolm Stewart in Paris was the guy, man. I mean, ain't nobody could beat what he was doing. I mean, he's the king of Paris right now for a reason. So I don't know, man. I look at Malcolm Stewart too as like a serious dark horse to win this title. After getting his first win last season, he clearly has the speed to hang up front. I think with hopefully his offseason being a good one and him being confident, I think it's one of those things that I think it could be really scary for some guys if Malcolm Stewart gets some momentum going and gets a couple of race wins, because he could be somebody I could see winning a race and winning this and potentially competing for this title.
There's definitely a chance. I'm not inclined to put Mookie in my championship favorites right now, but if he shows up and has that form that he had in Paris, I mean, he was just blowing by guys in the whoops up there the whole time. His worst finish that weekend was second. I mean, he went, I think, 3 or 4 wins and then 2 or 3 seconds. He was on another level that weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if Mookie can pick that up. Going back to one of your points from a few minutes ago, if I would have had more of a platform when this was coming out, I would have spoken out a lot more heavily about it. But immediately from the whole, Jett Lawrence can try to get McGrath's record, I thought it was a stupid take. Not because I don't think Jett Lawrence can accomplish it, but because we know how injuries can derail different things. In my opinion, of course, I'm going to show a little bit of my bias here growing up as a Stu fan. But you look on the all-time wins list, Stu has 50, I believe. Of course, McGrath with his 72, but my goodness, I think about 2008, Stu tears his ACL, misses 15 out of 17 rounds. Then you go back 2010, he's hurt there. 2012, misses the end of the season. Of course, that was also the year he was on the backwards engine JGR bike that he absolutely hated. 2015, suspended the whole season, doesn't get to compete. Who knows how many wins he could have had that year? Maybe it was only 1 or 2, maybe it was 7 or 8. My point is that realistically, if things would have went perfectly and he would have stayed healthy, there's a good shot James Stewart probably breaks Jeremy McGrath's record and is more of a champion and winner than some people going like, oh, he only won 2 Supercross titles. I feel like Stu, natural speed-wise, I mean, he was on another planet compared to pretty much everybody in the world, not just in America, but over in Europe too. But injuries and different things. And Jett, yes, he started out on a great pace, 9 wins and a championship in his rookie season, but now if something doesn't happen, if he doesn't come back from this injury before the outdoor season, I mean, this could be 4 out of the last 34 Supercross races if he decides to just skip the rest of Supercross and forego the extra gate drops and just prepare for outdoors. I don't think he's going to do that. I feel like he will come back and try to get points to be the number 1 seed for the playoffs. But I mean, if he, for some reason, decides to stay out of Supercross and just focus on Moto, that's 4 of the last 34 races, counting the 2025 and 2026 Supercross seasons, that he would have competed at. That's not a good track record. Everybody always talked about, oh, Jett's going to break McGrath's record. I don't think McGrath's record's ever going to be broken. It's going to take somebody with superhuman speed and superhuman health and luck to beat that number, because McGrath would go out and win 12 to 13 races every year, throw knack-knacks, go to the club afterwards for all hours of the morning, do it all over again next week, more knacks, more victories, more trophy girls, more champagne. He was a machine. And of course, that was before the era where everybody started training and overworking. But I just had to rant really quick because I don't feel like it's fair for everybody. And I know Jett's leaned into it a little bit, but I don't think people, as soon, before he even has a 450 main event under his belt, everybody was like, he can beat McGrath. It just annoyed me. And I wish I would have had a bigger platform or some kind of bigger voice at the time, because I felt like it was trying to do a disservice. Like, let's just try to enjoy the kid. There is a record that might be unobtainable. If he can try to get it, awesome. If not, let's just celebrate his career and watch what he's able to do. But moving back to the contenders, there are so many guys, like you mentioned, Eli Tomac. But I'm concerned about Eli. I think he's going to have some really good races on the KTM. Look at how well he performed in Vancouver. And then I look at what he did at Gold Coast. He was very disappointing in Gold Coast. I mean, Christian Craig flew by him like he was standing still. Granted, Christian Craig had his best race in years probably in Gold Coast. But I don't think I would have ever had Christian Craig blows by Eli Tomac at any spot on my 2025 bingo card. You look at Justin Cooper, a very consistent guy. He was your pick for Rider of the Year because he stayed healthy, he stayed in the fight, he was at the track every single weekend, competing for podiums, competing for top 5s. I think J. Coop could sneak in a main event win here and there, but I don't think he's going to have enough to fight for the championship. I think personally, the 3 guys that are going to be going for the title, in my opinion, are Chase, Cooper, and Ken Roczen. Ken Roczen's WSX season, you said it. He was out there racing J. Coop, Hayden Deegan, Eli Tomac. Eli's really the only guy that beat him straight up handily one night, and that was at Vancouver. And Kenny was still right there. He was still pretty close. But man, Kenny looked unreal in WSX. And I feel like this year, everybody's talking, we have the rider changes. Of course, Tomac's on a new bike. Chase is on a new bike. You got some new manufacturers like Ducati coming in. You have some of these brand new that everybody, oh, it's the new shiny toy. It's like Christmas time. You got Chase in his new shiny green bike, and Eli's on his new shiny orange bike, and Cooper's the defending champion, and can Hunter take a step up, and Mookie was awesome in Paris, and Ducati is here, and all of these things are going on, and Ken Roczen's just hammering away laps at Sandbox, just getting ready. And I think we got to keep in mind, too, I'm going to spoil a little bit of my podium prediction early. Ken Roczen is perhaps the most successful Anaheim 1 rider of the last 15 to 20 years. He's won that race 4 times. I think he's winning it a 5th time here in a couple weeks. Or we're actually recording this before 2025 is over. I just showed my hand a little bit there. It's December 30th when we're recording this. But I think in January, when the calendar rolls over, Ken Roczen is going to win Anaheim 1. I think Ken Roczen, if he can get a win like you were talking about with Hunter Lawrence, this is my strategy with Ken Roczen. If he can get a win or two in the early stages, if he can get that win at A1 or San Diego A2, one of those early rounds, I think he's going to be in it for the long haul. He didn't get that win last year until Daytona. Of course, he had the red plate for a little bit, but unfortunately, they had that crash at Tampa, took him out of things really in terms of the championship fight, and then you look throughout the year, of course, the ankle injury started getting worse and worse. But man, Ken Roczen, something tells me that with all of the headlines focusing around other people, Ken Roczen's probably going, what about me? Been so close before. Of course, there were several times. 2021 comes to mind. He's been in that fight. The last couple years, there's been signs, but it's trailed off. But I think January 10th, I think that Suzuki's going to win. I think Ken Roczen is going to be in the championship fight week in and week out this year. It's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully, it's a tight championship battle. Hunter Lawrence, I'm just not sold on with Supercross. If we were going into the Pro Motocross season and you were saying that Hunter Lawrence is your championship favorite, I might be inclined to agree with you there because Hunter Outdoors has been absolutely ripping the last couple years. One of only 2 guys to really beat Jett Lawrence straight up last year. Hunter, though, indoors, I mentioned it as a problem with Jett Lawrence and his whole chasing McGrath thing. Hunter Lawrence only raced 5 races last year. He got hurt the round after Jett got hurt. He got hurt at Tampa. And then you look at the year before, only 2 podiums in 17 rounds. I know he was adapting to things, but I just feel like, Hunter Lawrence, he doesn't quite have the experience and the track time, I feel. Although he could prove me wrong, he could prove you right and show up immediately and be in the championship fight, but I just think it's going to take a little too long for Hunter Lawrence to get going in terms of being in the championship fight. I think of it like the 2022 West Coast Supercross Series, where Hunter was just kind of there, like he was getting podiums, he was solid. He crashed out at A3, which really took him out of things. But then in the second half of the season, after they came back from their big break, he started winning everything. And I feel like this year with the 17-round championship, if he can stay healthy, I just don't see him up front at those first few rounds. But that last 5 to 6 round stretch of the season, when we start getting to Cleveland and we start getting to Philadelphia, and if he's healthy and some of these other riders are going to feel the pressure and feel tired a little bit, I feel like Hunter could rise to the occasion there. But I'm not exactly going to put him in my championship threshold as of yet. And then Mookie, you mentioned him. Man, I want to put Mookie up there with the championship contenders. I think he could win at least 1 to 2 races this year. We'll see what happens, but I don't think Malcolm will be a championship contender as well. I could see him potentially getting as high as 3rd in the championship if things go well, and I think he can win races. I think he'll be a regular podium face if he stays healthy, but I'm not ready to commit to Malcolm Stewart being there on the podium as well. And as I mentioned, I think really this year it's going to be between Chase Sexton, Cooper Webb, Ken Roczen. 3 completely different style of riders. You have Chase, the brand new bike, the fitness, the speed, he's got it. You have Cooper Webb, who is the cerebral assassin of Supercross. He's going to go out there. He's going to play mind games. He's going to use his strategies, his cornering, all of his success that has brought him Supercross championships in the past. Cooper Webb's going to be right up there, and I think Ken Roczen, between his experience and I think him being under the radar a little bit, is going to help this year. There's no real huge Kenny hype. There are some people thinking that Ken Roczen's going to be good, but I feel like most of the big stories going into A1 are going to leave him out of things, which is good for him. And then you move on deeper in the field, past the championship contenders. Well, it's like AP could win a race if he's healthy and getting back to form. You have a bunch of other guys in there. I mentioned Ducati. Justin Barcia, Dylan Ferrandis, going to be debuting for that manufacturer. Triumph is in. Of course, Jordan Smith hurt right now. Austin Forkner will start the series for them. Plus, you have a bunch of other wild card guys. Garrett Marchbanks, rookie year on a 450 in Supercross. RJ Hampshire, same status. Of course, you have Jason Anderson back on a Suzuki. You have Jorge Prado. Will it go well? Will it go terrible? Nobody knows. The beta guys are back. You have Colt Nichols back on the Suzuki, and we'll get deeper into the field a little bit later. But there are also a lot of guys, we're talking about the championship, who could it be, who could it be? There's also a lot of guys that are going to be like, hey man, I could steal a podium this week later in the year if things go well, if some guys are out. I look at Garrett Marchbanks, I look at some of these other guys, and I think this guy could be on the podium. There are legitimately 10 to 12 guys that could sneak in a podium this year. Obviously, probably not going to happen, but there is definitely a chance. And when you look down through the pack, like I mentioned, these second-tier guys, like a Plessinger, like a Barcia, a Hampshire, a Marchbanks, what are your thoughts on some of these guys? We think about how they can compete and how they can potentially make some noise and spoil this championship party, but with a wide open championship, how far are they going to be able to go, or will the top guys like Sexton and Webb and Tomac and Roczen hold them down and prevent them from really getting up to that next level of results?
Yeah, and that's another good point, I think, is how these other guys who have been, off the pace of a guy like Jett, of a guy like Chase when he's on, a guy like Ken when he's on. But they're, we saw in Gold Coast, like a guy like Craig, was able to pass Tomac, was able to beat Roczen. I think Roczen a little bit of a mishap, but granted, he's able to compete with those guys when there's not a Jett out there and there's not a Chase out there, whatever it is. I think it's going to come down to a lot of it being where these guys can start the race. If a guy like if a guy like Aaron Plessinger is able to start in the top three, there's a real chance he podiums that night. It's not out of the question that he can do that. And I think that's my point with anybody is if these guys can stay, inside the top five, and they can start up there and they can, they have the ability to not they're not way off the pace, they could podium. It's not out of the question for anybody, in my opinion. I think Chase is a guy that's probably has the ability to really come through the pack. I think Ken has that same ability as well. I think Cooper Webb also has that same ability. But outside of that, I don't know if any of these other guys had the real ability to make more than maybe 3 or 4 passes to really kind of move up. By the time the field kind of gets into a play and a main event, a whole shot goes a long way, in my opinion. If a guy like Chase Sexton and Cooper Webb and Ken Roczen aren't really at the forefront of the race right away, and you're out front and your name is, Justin Barcia, it's so possible you could finish that race in where you started it. We've seen it before where Barcia gets the whole shot and goes wire to wire, at A1 specifically, really, So that's just my whole thing. And a guy like Malcolm Stewart, who had that unreal ride at Tampa last year, he came through the pack pretty heavily, which is crazy. Wish we could see a breakout ride like that from some of the guys, later on in the season. But I think it's going to be it's going to be like that. I think who can start up front if you catch Chase and Cooper Webb and Ken Roxon on a night where they start outside the top five, like if you're a guy like Dylan Ferrandis even, you could see yourself on the podium just by with whatever, I think it just opens up everything in my head with how this whole thing is kind of becoming to operate, just because, okay, now you really have a guy like Cooper Webb who's kind of going to have potentially prone to have slow start to the season, and then you have a guy like Chase who's on a new bike and have some growing pains. A guy like Ken Roxon who, is really fast one race, and then 3 weeks go by, and then he's just not the same guy that weekend. It's so you have these guys who are like not known to be the most consistent guys all the time, or that a guy like Chase who makes mistakes, or Cooper Webb could just be off a night. Same thing with Ken Roxon, could be off a night. But then typically you'd have a guy like Jett or Tomac or whatever up there as well. It's so easy for these guys in my head, for these guys to say, oh, dude, Chase isn't inside the top five. I can win this thing. And then the whole mentality changes, I think, for everybody, just by knowing where everybody stands and kind of how you feel about yourself. I think everybody's kind of scared of Jett. I think everybody knows, look, this kid is really, really good. And they're kind of intimidated by him, to be honest. And I think taking him out of the equation really just kind of changes everything. I mean, a guy like Aaron Plessinger, who after San Diego last year had the red plate. I mean, which is crazy to think about. Another guy that I think could, if he can click off some wins, and if he's fully healthy and he's on, I mean, he's fast. I mean, he could win a couple races. I mean, I think we could have upwards of 6 guys win a race this year. I mean, it'd be crazy to see that, I think we'd all love to see that, really. And I hope it happens early, where we just get a bunch of, great races and some good battles, and I think that's what this year's going to be all about. I think taking Jett Lawrence out of the equation, as much as it sucks, could be something that is beneficial for the sport right now, because of how dominant he's been, just like in outdoors at least. Like, it kind of kills the joy with him. If he gets out front, that's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he ain't gonna make a mistake. He ain't gonna fade. He ain't gonna do anything like that. He's so good. Unless somebody's really on their game that day, it's gonna be hard for anybody to beat him. So, I mean, I'm very excited to see how everything turns out. I think this year will be very, very interesting, and I just, I think there's going to be a lot of podiums this year from different guys. I hope that guys like Garrett Marchbanks can get up on the podium maybe later in the year if some injuries plague some guys. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago with Justin Hill. That was a shocker, I think, to everybody to see him up on the podium. But I just hope everybody can stay healthy. I think that's the biggest thing with this. I don't think everybody can do that. I mean, I don't think anybody said his name yet, but Jason Anderson, the World Supercross champion. I don't remember if you said it or not, but I mean, he's a guy who, unlike I don't know is he the even year guy? Like, he's good on the even year, so he won his title in 2020 or 2018 or something like that, right?
Yeah, 18 was the title, and 2022 was the first year with Cowie that he was competing with Tomac. Maybe you're onto something.
And this year's 2026. I mean, 4 years later from 2022, 4 years later from 2018, new bike. I mean, I'm seeing some maybe red and not only Ken Roxon's future on a yellow bike, but maybe Jason Anderson's. I mean, the guy just won a World Supercross title. The guy's probably feeling on top of the world right now, being able to oh, look, I just led some laps. Let's go do this again. I think it's wide open, dude. And there's just so many guys that have proven themselves to be good over the course of a few years, and I think that the door is wide open for everybody right now. And I think, and I hope somebody's able to barge through it and become really dominant. Hoping it's my friend Chase, but I could really see it being anybody. And I'm very, very excited for Anaheim 1 just to see kind of where everybody stacks up. And I think by the time we get to Daytona, though, we'll have a kind of a clear cut on who I think, and I think who you think is going to be really the favorite going into Salt Lake City.
That could definitely be the case. Ricky Carmichael, that's one of his big sayings. He's always like, championship starts at Daytona. And sometimes that's definitely the case. And I'm like you as well. I want to see early in the season, if you had maybe 5 guys win the first 5 rounds, 5 or 6 rounds, that would be insane. I mean, think about it. Of course, I've already went out and said that Kenny's going to win A1. What if Tomac gets San Diego, and then Chase gets A2, and then Webb gets Glendale, and then round 5, I can't remember which one that is right off the top of my head, but maybe Hunter goes out and gets that win at round 5. Oh wait, round 4 is Houston, so Hunter wins Houston, then maybe Webb wins Glendale, maybe Mookie gets in there sometime early in the season. I mean, that would be a really fun start to the season, and personally, I don't really want to rush the predictions yet for our championship and for our podium at Anaheim, so I will briefly mention it's not just going to be these factory guys, whether it's the winning crew, the guys who we think could compete for podiums on the right night. It's not just going to be those guys in a bloodbath. I mean, I think about the guys who are going to be in that like 12th to 20 range this year. You think about the Beta guys, the Triumph guys, Colt Nichols, Savachi, McElrath, and even guys like Grant Harlan, Mitchell Harrison, Kevin Moran's, Vince Freezy's back running the full series this year. There are going to be a lot of very talented guys going for main event spots, and I know every year it's cliche to say, oh, stacked field. We have a stacked field every year, and that's the truth realistically, but you look at this year, and if everybody was healthy starting off, I think there would be 19 or 20 factory bikes, which is absolutely insane, counting the Suzukis as factory bikes. That's a lot of factory guys, and then, like I mentioned, you have to add in guys like Savachi, Craig, McElrath, Justin Hill, as you mentioned a couple minutes ago. And then, of course, Mitchell Harrison, he was in the playoffs last year. Grant Harlan's been in the playoffs before. So there are so many guys. There are going to be some racers who are just going to be happy to make the main event at times this season. Guys who have been in the top 10 before and put together solid results and had solid careers and are weekly main event guys that are going to be just simply happy to be in the main event the way the field looks this year. Obviously, we have no idea how many injuries could occur. We don't know what guys could get taken out. But there are going to be a lot of people in every single aspect of the field, whether they're racing for the win or for the podium or for 7th or for 18th or for 4th in the LCQ. It doesn't matter. There's going to be battles all over the place this season. I hope it's an amazing season. And now getting to the point I was going to make about the championship, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about it right now as we start to transition more toward the end of our show and make our championship predictions and our Anaheim 1 podium predictions for the 450 class. I think the championship's going to go one of two ways. Option A is going to be the one I mentioned earlier, where there are going to be 3 to 4 guys really in the mix. Hopefully we get a 2011. I know that's a very rare occurrence, but I think back to 2011 you had Villapoto, Dungey, Stewart, and Reed all in the fight for the championship until the very end pretty much. If there was a way somehow, I mentioned that Chase, Cooper, Kenny are my 3 guys that I think are really going to be the ones battling for the title. If we go into, I almost said Vegas, Salt Lake City, if we go into Salt Lake with 3 guys right there for the championship, or at least in striking distance, that could be an insane season. But my other thing is part of me thinks that Chase Sexton can just reel off 10 to 12 wins this season and dominate this championship. I really do. I think a happy and a confident Chase Sexton is going to be very, very dangerous for everybody else. And if he figures out this Kawasaki, gets a couple wins early in the season, look out. Season might be over. My pick to win the 2026 Supercross Championship is the guy I said was my favorite on paper. Chase Sexton is going to be a 2-time AMA Supercross champion, in my opinion. Whether it's a close race with guys like Webb that he's got to fight through all season, I think last season's battle with Webb really helped toughen him up and show Chase, like, all right, you're in the deep waters now. He really didn't get to have that with Tomac because of the injury in 23. He had it some outdoors, but not indoors. Tomac was going to win that championship. Then he gets hurt and immediately it flips around. It wasn't like a gradual thing. Of course, last year it was back and forth. Cooper would win, Chase would win, Cooper would win, Chase would win, Chase would win a couple, then Cooper would answer back. I think that championship fight really helped Chase develop his championship fighting, his clutch ability. He didn't get it done, but I think being in that competition with Cooper Webb, who's so tenacious and so good at those style of races, really helped him grow and develop into a better championship contender. And like I mentioned, whether it's a tight battle that goes to the last round or a potential year where he dominates, because man, I feel like he could dominate too if he had the right momentum and the right amount of wins. Chase Sexton is my pick for the 2026 AMA Supercross champion. Now I'm interested to see who yours is, because you talked about Hunter Lawrence potentially being the favorite on paper, but I know you're probably pretty high on Chase as well. Who do you have for the champion this year? It's not really a clear-cut answer. I'm interested to see if you're like me and you have multiple different scenarios that could happen planned out.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite for the championship has got to be Chase. I mean, I think he's definitely the most talented rider when it comes to speed wise. I think he's got the ability to win the most races out of every other guy in the class, which in my head that's the biggest factor this year. I think is winning races. I think if you can win a lot of races, if you can win 3 or 4 more than the guy behind you, that's what you want to do. At the point of winning the championship, that's what you need to do. Yeah, and I think he has the ability to do that. So that's why I put him as my favorite. I don't know. It's tough to say, man. It really is. Like, there's just so many different scenarios where I'm playing out in my head. Like, let's say Cooper Webb has a really, really hot start. Let's say Cooper Webb comes out there and wins, 4 of the first 7 rounds and has the red plate going into Daytona. I'm not betting against that man, Cooper Webb, in the last half of the year. There's no way. He'll find a way. And that's just it, too. Like, I think that's just the biggest thing is if whoever has the hot start of the year and continue to carry that momentum and stay healthy, I think wins this title. Whether it's Hunter, whether it's Kenny, whether it's Chase, whether it's Cooper Webb, but whoever can have that red plate after Daytona and have, if they have a sort of gap or whatever it is, I think that's the guy you're going to be looking for to win the whole thing. And I don't think that's super far-fetched at all. I mean, whoever goes out and wins day one, I think that kind of is like almost feels like a one-off race in a sense. But it could jumpstart somebody's year, If a guy like Anderson goes out and wins day one, I mean, he, in my head, immediately jumps to title contender, like right away. And same with a guy like Malcolm Stewart. Like, if he goes out and wins day one, same thing. And that's just the joy of Anaheim 1 is, like, I think guys like that who are still in my head, not Anderson maybe, but Mookie at least, building a little bit, like off of his good year last year. I think Malcolm Stewart wins day one, and he's a title contender. Wins 2 or 3 races in the first 7, he's a title contender. Like, there's no doubt in my head, like, whoever wins day one has a really good chance of winning that title, I think. But I think it'll come down to how good Cooper Webb can be in that first 4 or 5 rounds on the West Coast. I think that's going to be the key for him. And if he's really out of it, I think Chase is going to have a really easy championship if he's able to be up there. So, I don't know. I just hope the growing pains for Chase are good, and they aren't, to the point where he's throwing races away because of it, because that would be a serious issue in my head of, whoa, what are we doing now, man? Like, we moved to Cali after, the bike was, terrible for you on KTM. What do we do now? And for me, that's what I hope we don't see happen. I hope he finally settles in and is able to get some consistency and seems to be building on what he wants out of his motorcycle, which I think is happening. I think it is. I think he's got a clear-minded head about it. I think he's the most determined he's ever been to figure something out, and I think Cowie's in the same boat. So, yeah, I mean, my favorite to win is Chase, I think, followed by a guy like Kenny. That's the thing, too, with, like, Kenny. It's like if Kenny can be good enough in the first couple seasons and the first couple races, like if he's able to win 3 out of the 7 races before Daytona, I mean, Ken Roczen can win. And the first 7 races, like I said, whoever has that red plate leaving Daytona, I think is the guy going into the rest of the season. I think all of the guys. I think if anybody other than Chase has it, they have a good chance to win. But the only guy I think that could potentially make a comeback is Chase. So, like, that's my thing. Like, if Chase has a terrible first couple rounds coming into Daytona, is, not on it, but then all of a sudden after Daytona he starts turning on winning some races, like, he's the only guy in my opinion that's able to can claw back a pretty major point deficit. You know what I mean? Just with how good he can be in like stretches. Like that's just the thing with Chase is like Chase gets in a flow and it's on. Like it's on. And that's just the problem with last year's his stretch didn't come till kind of super late. I think it was, I don't remember when it was, but after the whole Arlington incident, and like he kind of throws away that point or that win, and then he kind of has to like figure it out, takes around to figure it out, then wins a race, and then kind of goes on like a tear, winning a bunch of races. And Cooper Webb was in like a driver's seat of like 17 points. He's pretty much claws it back to basically where like if he wins out, he wins the title. Like it's pretty crazy. And Cooper Webb was able to kind of manage it and win one race out of those races to kind of make it work. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think if a guy, whoever it is, can win three races early before Daytona, them and Chase Sexton will go down to the wire. I think this championship goes down to the wire unless Chase Sexton goes out there and dominates from round one, which could easily happen. I mean, he could easily take this title and just put it in his pocket and say, we're winning this thing, no doubt. So it's gonna be a great fight. I'm excited for this year, and I think I'm just gonna throw my Anaheim 1 predictions down if that's cool with you, Trey.
Go right ahead, man.
I got Ken Roczen when they won 2. I think that's actually a huge pick for the Suzuki program. I think it'll be sick. I think Ken Roczen will be he's raced ready. He's raced WSX. He seems to be the guy that's in the least amount of changes going on around him, really. And then I got Chase in second, Tomac third. I think that the podium is going to be pretty simple. I think that's the podium. I think Chase will get second. I think Chase will come from behind. I think Chase will have a good round. He's going to come from deep, but I think Ken Roczen's going to get the whole shot and take off. And then I think Tomac's going to start up there with Kenny, but he's not going to have the juice to hold on with Ken Roczen on that new bike. I think he's just going to struggle a little bit. That's my podium. Trey, what's yours?
As I've mentioned, Kenny P1, his track record at A1 speaks for itself, and as you mentioned, he's been on Suzuki. He knows that bike in and out now. P2 and P3 is going to be a little bit harder. Obviously, it's A1. It could be anybody. Part of me wanted to say Barsha's going to win, but I don't think that's going to happen. I almost had him on my podium, but I didn't. I'm going to chase P3 instead of P2. I think Chase will be fastest qualifier and give an immediate statement like, oh, hello, he's going to be fast this year. But for whatever reason, I just don't think he gets the job done in the main event. Maybe it's some kind of bad start that he has to work his way through the pack. Either way, I think Chase is going to perform well at Anaheim 1, just not on top of the podium. And then for P2, I usually buy into the hype every year, and I guess I'm going to go for it this time. Mookie, P2, A1. I got Malcolm Stewart for second. Looked very, very good at Paris. Another guy that, even though we had the Paris race and he had all of the success there, a guy that I feel like isn't getting a ton of headlines. He's still getting talked about. People are saying, oh, he could win races or whatever, but I don't think people are going to expect necessarily A1 Mookie being very good. But I think Ken Roczen, Malcolm Stewart, Chase Sexton are my personal podium for Anaheim 1. And if we're going to keep the predictions like last year, where I barely squeaked out a win, granted we only did half the year because we started the show in June, but if we're going to be like last year, then I think we should bring back the random spot prediction. And no, I did not have time to dwell on this because I literally rolled it in the middle of our conversation, so I've had no time other than a few minutes to really prepare for it, and I don't think I'm prepared. But I rolled 12th place for our random spot prediction. Not an easy one to start out with. And I'm like, man, it could be Mitchell Oldenburg. It could be Dylan Ferrandis. It could be Jorge Prado. And I just started cycling through like 10 to 12 names, it felt like. who could be 12th. So I'm just going to throw one out there that sounds fairly reasonable to me. I think 12th place Anaheim 1, that sounds like Joey Savacci to me. And it's weird because I don't feel like I should be putting a guy who was giving Anderson all he could handle at the end of World Supercross and a guy who's usually a top 10 level guy. I don't feel like I should put him at 12th. But then I look at the list and it's like, well, you got Chase, Kenny, Eli, Cooper Webb, Justin Cooper, RJ, Malcolm, Garrett Marchbanks, Hunter Lawrence, plus some other guys in there you could throw in, Barsha, Ferrandis. I mean, you look on down the list and it's like, well, okay, maybe Joey is going to get 12th. So I'm just going to throw the dart at the wall. Will it stick? I don't know. But Joey Savacci, Quad Lock Honda, the number 17 is going to be P12 at Angel Stadium on January 10th. Not an easy pick, man. Those random rolls never, ever get any easier. Especially now A1, everybody's healthy, so it's just grab a name out of a hat, basically.
You ain't wrong, man. That one is not easy. I wish I could just say Benoit Patrol because I feel like that's pretty easy to say. He ain't racing Supercross. I mean, shit. I want to go Christian Craig. I think that's about where I'll end up. I think he'll be good, but I don't think he'll be great. And I think 12th is about where I see him finishing. I wish I could say Dean Wilson because I mean that'd be cool too. But yeah, I'm gonna go CC. His Joey Savacci's quad lock brother. I think he's racing for quad lock for Supercross, right?
I would expect so. I mean, Quad Lock, for whatever reason, has been one of those teams the last couple years to wait until the last minute to say, hey, here's our team. But Quad Lock Honda battle to the death for 12th place will be very entertaining if it actually happens. Watch, it'll probably be somebody who we didn't even consider at all. It'll be like, oh, Eli Tomac's 12th.
It'll be crazy if it's like a guy like Tomac. Hunter Lawrence is 12th, my title, on paper favorite to win the series. Well, there goes that. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, RV, I think, was 17th or 18th one year at A1 and still on the title. So, hey, it's bizarro land in Angel Stadium out there. But this has been our 450 preview episode for the Monster Energy AMA Supercross season. Lots of chaos, lots of talking points. We're still not really sure what's going to happen, and I don't think anybody is. If they are certain, if people are really certain, they're either A, a super fan of whatever guy they want to win, or B, delusional. So I wouldn't believe anybody as of right now. We're just going to have to see Anaheim, San Diego, wait for the first few races to unfold. But of course, Jack Noel, my co-host, thank you for your insight. Very fun episode. This has been episode number 22 of the Stire Sound. And yes, you are hearing this on a Monday. The normal episode will be out on Wednesday, and we will be previewing the 250 class of Monster Energy Supercross 2. Hopefully, we're going to know a little bit more about the classes. I have some ideas. I think I know some things about the classes for 250 Supercross, but stay tuned for that one. Hope you guys are having a solid 2026 so far. Hopefully, you had a great Christmas and New Year's in 2025. For Jack Noel, I am Trey Stire. The Stire Sound is fading out.